You have read Psalm 91 dozens of times. You have recited its verses in moments of desperation. You have claimed its promises with trembling lips. Yet sickness still lingers in your body. Fear still haunts your nights. And the deliverance you were promised seems like words meant for someone holier, someone more deserving, someone whose faith is stronger than yours will ever be. You have prayed for the protection the psalmist describes. You have asked God to cover you with His feathers and shield you from the pestilence, yet disease still attacks, symptoms still persist, and you wonder if these ancient words have any power left for someone facing modern illness with modern fears and modern doubts that the psalmist could never have imagined. The problem is not that Psalm 91 has lost its power, not that God has withdrawn His protection, not that you are too sinful or too weak or too unworthy to receive what is promised, but that you have been reading these verses as poetry to admire rather than truth to inhabit, as promises to hope for rather than realities to claim, as words about God rather than words from God spoken directly to you in this moment of your greatest need. You have read Psalm 91 many times. You have heard others speak of its power. You have perhaps even memorized its verses, yet sickness still dwells in your body, fear still grips your heart, and deliverance seems like a distant promise meant for someone else, someone more worthy, someone more spiritual than you believe yourself to be. The truth that will set you free today is simply this: Psalm 91 is not merely a poem to be read, not merely words to be recited, not merely ancient scripture to be admired from a distance, but rather a living covenant between you and the infinite healing presence that created every cell in your body and knows exactly how to restore what has been damaged, heal what has been wounded, and deliver you from every form of bondage that has held you captive. When the psalmist wrote these words thousands of years ago, he was not writing for people of that time alone. He was writing for you, for this very moment in your life, for this very struggle you are facing, for this very disease you are battling, for this very fear that keeps you awake at night and steals your peace during the day. A woman said to Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been diagnosed with a condition her doctors called incurable, and she had prayed and prayed without any apparent result, until she began to understand that Psalm 91 was not a request she was making to a distant God, but a statement of truth about her actual relationship with the divine presence dwelling within her. She began to dwell in the secret place of the Most High, not by traveling somewhere physically, but by turning her attention inward to the healing presence that had been there all along, waiting for her recognition, waiting for her acceptance, waiting for her to claim the protection and healing that was already hers by divine right. You must understand today that the secret place mentioned in Psalm 91 is not a church building, not a temple made with human hands, not a sacred site you must travel to, but the very center of your own consciousness where God dwells eternally, where healing power flows unceasingly, where deliverance is already accomplished in the mind of the infinite. The moment you turn within and acknowledge this presence, the moment you accept that you are dwelling in the secret place right now, the moment you recognize that the shadow of the Almighty covers you completely, healing begins to manifest in your body, peace begins to flood your mind, and deliverance from every form of bondage becomes your living experience. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And these words are not conditional upon your worthiness, not dependent upon your past mistakes, not reserved for those who have lived perfect lives, but are a universal promise extended to every soul who will accept it, believe it, and live from it as the foundation of their daily experience. The secret place is not hidden because God wishes to keep it from you, but because it exists within the depths of your own mind, where most people never think to look, always searching outside themselves for the healing, protection, and deliverance that can only be found within. You have been taught to look to doctors alone, to medicines alone, to treatments alone, to external sources alone for your healing. And while these may serve as channels through which divine healing flows, They are never the source, for the source is always the infinite healing presence that dwells in the secret place within you. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had spent years seeking healing from every external source he could find, traveling to specialists, spending his savings on promised cures, until he finally understood that his healing would not come from without, but from within, from the secret place where God's power was waiting to be recognized and released. When you dwell in this secret place through meditation, through prayer, through the quiet turning of your mind toward the infinite, you come under the shadow of the Almighty, and a shadow provides protection from the burning heat of disease, from the scorching effects of fear, from the harmful rays of negative thinking that have been destroying your health and peace. This shadow is not darkness but divine covering, not absence of light but the presence of God, so close, so intimate, so completely surrounding you that nothing harmful can penetrate to where you truly dwell. You say to yourself throughout this day, I dwell in the secret place of the Most High. I abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And as you say these words with conviction, with feeling, with the certainty that they are true, your subconscious mind accepts them as reality and begins to manifest their meaning in your body as healing, in your mind as peace, in your circumstances as deliverance from every form of bondage. The secret place is not somewhere you must struggle to reach, not somewhere you must earn the right to enter, but somewhere you already are the moment you recognize it, the moment you claim it, the moment you accept that God dwells within you and you dwell within God. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. And when you speak these words, you are not merely reciting Scripture. You are making a declaration of faith that penetrates your subconscious mind and begins to rearrange your entire mental and physical being, according to the pattern of divine protection and healing. A refuge is a place of safety, where you run when danger threatens, and your God is that refuge, not distant, not separate, not outside of you somewhere in the sky, but dwelling within you as the very life force that beats your heart and breathes through your lungs. When disease threatens your body, you run to this refuge within. You turn your mind to the healing presence that is God. You declare with absolute conviction that this presence is your protection, your safety, your healing power that no disease can overcome. A fortress is a place of strength that cannot be penetrated by enemies, and your God is that fortress, surrounding you with walls of divine power that no sickness can break through, no fear can climb over. No negative condition can find entrance into when you maintain your awareness of this truth. A woman came to Dr. Joseph Murphy in great distress because she had been told her condition was beyond medical help, and she felt as though she had no fortress, no protection, no refuge from the disease that was attacking her body. He instructed her to repeat throughout each day, "The Lord is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust," and to feel the meaning of these words as she spoke them, to sense the protection surrounding her, to imagine the fortress walls of divine power keeping all harm away from her. Within weeks, her condition began to improve. Her doctors were amazed. Her body responded to the healing power she had activated through her declaration of faith in the God who dwells within. You must understand that trust is not passive. Trust is not simply wishing things will get better, but trust is active reliance upon the power of God within you, complete confidence that this power is working for your healing right now, absolute certainty that the refuge and fortress of the Almighty is your protection today and every day. When you say these words, "The Lord is my refuge and fortress, my God, in Him will I trust," you are programming your subconscious mind with the truth that sets you free from disease, from fear, from every form of bondage that has held you captive. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. And this promise speaks directly to your situation today, directly to the disease that has trapped you like a bird caught in a hunter's snare, directly to the sickness that has attached itself to your body like a pestilence that will not let go. The snare of the fowler is a trap designed to catch birds unaware. And many diseases work exactly this way, catching you when you least expect it, trapping you in a condition you never saw coming, holding you captive to symptoms and diagnoses that seem inescapable. But the promise of Psalm 91 is that God shall deliver you from this snare. God shall release you from this trap. God shall break the power of this disease that has caught you and set you free to experience the health and wholeness that is your divine birthright. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he felt completely trapped by his illness, as though he were a bird caught in a net with no way to escape, no strength to break free, no hope of ever flying again in the freedom of health and vitality. Dr. Joseph Murphy explained to him that the power to deliver him from this snare was not outside of him but within him, that God, dwelling in the secret place of his own consciousness, was already working to release him from the trap of disease, and that his only task was to believe this truth and accept his deliverance as already accomplished. The noisome pestilence represents those diseases that seem to spread their poison through your entire system, those conditions that seem to infect every part of your life, those illnesses that not only attack your body but steal your joy, destroy your peace, and poison your relationships with fear and worry. Yet the promise remains, surely he shall deliver you from the noisome pestilence. Surely this sickness that has spread its influence throughout your life shall be stopped. Surely the healing power of God shall purify your system and restore you to complete wholeness. You claim this promise today not as a future hope, but as a present reality, declaring with confidence, God delivers me from every snare that has trapped me. God frees me from every pestilence that has poisoned my system. God releases me into the perfect health and complete freedom that is my divine inheritance. Your subconscious mind responds to this declaration by activating the healing intelligence within every cell of your body, breaking the power of disease, and delivering you from every form of bondage. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. And this beautiful image of divine protection speaks to the tender, nurturing care that God provides for you in your time of sickness and need. A mother bird covers her young with her feathers when danger approaches, protecting them with her own body, warming them with her own heat, shielding them from every threat that would harm them. And this is exactly what God does for you when you turn to the secret place within and trust in the divine presence that dwells there. Under the wings of the Almighty, you find safety from the attacks of disease, protection from the arrows of fear, shelter from the storms of negative diagnosis and frightening prognosis that others speak over your condition. A woman shared with Dr. Joseph Murphy how she would close her eyes each night and imagine herself as a small bird tucked safely under the great protective wings of God, feeling the warmth of divine love surrounding her, sensing the absolute safety of being completely covered by infinite protection. And as she practiced this visualization night after night, her chronic condition began to heal. Her pain began to diminish. Her doctors began to observe improvements they could not explain through medical science alone. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler, and this truth is not merely intellectual knowledge about God, not merely theological doctrine you have learned, but living, active truth that you have accepted into your subconscious mind. Truth that has become part of your mental framework, truth that automatically deflects the attacks of disease and fear before they can penetrate to harm you. A shield is held in front of you to stop attacks before they reach your body, and the truth of God's healing presence is your shield, stopping the disease before it can advance, stopping the fear before it can grip your heart, stopping the negative prognosis before it can become your reality. A buckler is a small shield worn on the arm for close combat, protecting you in hand-to-hand battle, and the truth of God is your buckler in those intimate daily struggles with symptoms and pain and worry, protecting you moment by moment as you walk through each day. You take up this shield and buckler now by declaring the truth. God covers me with His feathers. I trust under His wings. His truth protects me from all harm. And as you declare this truth with feeling and conviction, your subconscious mind creates the very protection you are affirming, surrounding you with divine power that no disease can penetrate. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. And this promise addresses those fears that attack you in the darkness when you cannot sleep, when your mind races with worry about your condition, when the silence of night seems to amplify every symptom and magnify every concern until you feel overwhelmed by terror that you cannot name or escape. The terror by night is not only physical danger, but the mental anguish that comes when you lie in bed wondering if you will ever be well again, wondering if the treatment will work, wondering if you will see your loved ones grow older, wondering if tomorrow will bring relief or more suffering. God promises that you shall not be afraid of this terror, not because the fearful thoughts will never come, but because you have a refuge within you that is stronger than any fear, a secret place where peace dwells eternally and terror cannot enter. A man confided to Dr. Joseph Murphy that his nights had become torture chambers of fear, that he would wake at 3 a.m. gripped by panic about his diagnosis, unable to return to sleep, unable to calm his racing heart, unable to escape the dark thoughts that seemed to multiply in the silence. Dr. Joseph Murphy taught him to repeat whenever fear arose, "I shall not be afraid for the terror by night, for God is with me in the darkness. God is my peace when fear attacks. God is my calm when panic threatens." And as this man practiced this declaration night after night, the terror began to lose its power, sleep began to return, and peace began to reign even in the darkest hours. The arrow that flieth by day represents those sudden attacks that come without warning during your waking hours, those moments when a new symptom appears, when a concerning report arrives, when someone speaks negative words over your condition, when fear strikes like an arrow shot from an unseen bow. You cannot always prevent these arrows from being shot at you, but you can develop such trust in the divine protection surrounding you that these arrows cannot penetrate to wound your spirit or destroy your faith. You declare today and every day, "I am not afraid of the terror by night or the arrow that flies by day, for I dwell in the secret place of the Most High. I abide under the shadow of the Almighty, and no weapon formed against me shall prosper, no attack shall succeed, no fear shall overcome me, for greater is He that is within me than any terror or arrow that comes against me. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee." And this extraordinary promise declares that even when disease seems to be striking everyone around you, even when sickness appears to be spreading without restraint, even when it seems impossible to escape the plague that is affecting so many, you who dwell in the secret place of the Most High shall be protected, preserved, and kept in perfect health. This is not a promise of arrogance or superiority over others, but a promise of the protection that comes to all who understand their unity with the infinite healing presence and maintain their consciousness in that secret place where disease cannot dwell. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that everyone in her family had developed a certain condition, that it seemed to run in their bloodline, that doctors had warned her she would certainly develop it too based on her genetics. And she came to him in fear, asking if there was any escape from what seemed like certain fate. He explained to her that while disease may fall upon 1,000 at her side and 10,000 at her right hand, she was not bound by genetics, not controlled by family history, not destined to repeat the patterns of illness that had affected her relatives, because she had access to a power greater than heredity, a presence stronger than genetics, a healing intelligence that could rewrite the code of her body according to divine perfection rather than family patterns. She began to affirm daily, 1,000 may fall at my side with this condition, 10,000 may fall at my right hand, but it shall not come nigh me. For I am protected by the power of the Almighty, I am kept in perfect health by the God who dwells within me, and within her body. The pattern of disease that had manifested in her family did not manifest. The condition her doctors expected never developed, and she lived in the health that was her divine birthright. You must understand that this promise is not about being better than others who become sick, not about deserving protection that others do not receive, but about understanding a law of mind and spirit that anyone can use, a principle of divine protection that works for all who apply it, a truth that you are now applying to your own life and health. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. And this verse teaches you a profound truth about observation without participation, about witnessing without becoming entangled, about seeing the effects of negative thinking and fearful living in the lives of others without allowing those same effects to manifest in your own experience. The reward of the wicked is not punishment from an angry God, but simply the natural consequence of living in fear. Dwelling in negativity, refusing to turn to the healing presence within, and you may observe these consequences in the lives of others as a reminder of what happens when the law of mind is not properly used. You see with your eyes what happens when people refuse to believe in their own healing, when they accept disease as their permanent condition, when they give up hope and surrender to sickness. And this observation becomes a teacher that instructs you to choose differently, to believe differently, to live differently. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he was surrounded by negative people who constantly spoke of their illnesses, constantly predicted doom, constantly reinforced disease with their words and thoughts, and he wondered how he could maintain his own faith in healing while witnessing so much sickness and negativity around him. Dr. Joseph Murphy counseled him that he could observe with his eyes without absorbing into his mind, that he could see the reward of negative thinking without experiencing that reward himself, that he could have compassion for others who did not understand the law while still applying the law correctly in his own life. You are not called to judge those who are sick, not called to look down upon those who have not discovered the secret place, not called to condemn those whose negative thinking has produced negative results, but you are called to observe, to learn, to choose differently, and to dwell in the consciousness of health even while others around you dwell in the consciousness of disease. Your eyes may see sickness all around you. Your eyes may behold the consequences of fear and negativity in the lives of others. But your mind remains fixed on the truth of divine healing. Your consciousness remains established in the secret place, and what your eyes see does not become what your body experiences. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. And this promise explains the cause of your protection and the reason for your immunity from the diseases that seem to strike others without restraint. The cause is simply this: you have made the Lord your habitation. You have chosen to dwell mentally and spiritually in the consciousness of divine presence. You have established your home not in the realm of fear and disease, but in the secret place of the Most High, where healing reigns eternally. Your habitation is not primarily the physical house where your body sleeps, but the mental and spiritual state where your consciousness dwells. And when your habitation is the awareness of God's presence, the recognition of divine protection, the acceptance of perfect healing, then no evil can befall you and no plague can come near your dwelling. A woman shared with Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had struggled for years to understand why some people seemed protected from disease while others seemed to attract every illness that came along. And he explained to her that the difference was not luck, not genetics, not random chance, but habitation, the mental and spiritual place where each person chose to dwell. He taught her to make the Lord her habitation by beginning each day with the declaration, "I dwell in the presence of the Most High. I live and move and have my being in God. My habitation is the secret place of divine love and healing, and no evil can befall me, no plague can approach where I truly live." Establishing her consciousness in the divine habitation before she began any other activity, and as she did so, Her health improved, her chronic conditions began to heal, and she experienced the protection promised to all who make the Lord their dwelling place. You are making this choice today. You are establishing your habitation in the Most High. You are moving your consciousness from the realm of fear and disease into the secret place of perfect healing. And as you do so, the promise becomes your reality. No evil befalls you. No plague approaches your true dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. And this promise reveals that you are not alone in your healing journey, that divine messengers of health and wholeness are assigned specifically to you, that invisible helpers are working on your behalf to protect you, guide you, and keep you in all your ways. These angels are not necessarily beings with wings and halos as depicted in artwork, but are the divine ideas, the healing thoughts, the inspired actions, the perfect guidance that comes to you from the infinite when you dwell in the secret place and remain open to divine direction. When you need to know what treatment to pursue, angels give you wisdom. When you need to find the right doctor, angels guide your steps. When you need encouragement to continue believing, angels send people and circumstances to strengthen your faith. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy, that he had been completely lost in the medical system, not knowing which specialist to see, which treatment to choose, which path to take among the many confusing options presented to him, and he felt overwhelmed by decisions he was not equipped to make. Joseph Murphy instructed him to affirm each morning, "God gives his angels charge over me. Divine wisdom guides me in all my ways. I am led to the right people, the right treatments, the right decisions for my perfect healing." And as he made this his daily practice, the right doctor seemed to appear at the right moment. The right treatment became obvious, and the confusion that had paralyzed him was replaced by divine guidance that led him step by step to complete recovery. You must understand that these angels keep you in all your ways, not just in the dramatic moments of crisis, but in the daily decisions about what to eat, how to rest, when to exercise, how to think, and every other aspect of living that contributes to your health and healing. You are surrounded today by angelic guidance. You are kept in all your ways by divine messengers who work on your behalf. And as you acknowledge their presence and remain open to their direction, you find yourself guided unfailingly toward the complete healing that is your divine destiny. "They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone," and this beautiful promise assures you that the angels assigned to your protection will not allow you to stumble and fall, will not permit you to be injured by the obstacles in your path, will not let you be harmed by the stones of disease, difficulty, and danger that lie along your journey to complete healing. The image of being borne up in hands speaks of tender personal care, not the distant protection of a far-off God, but the intimate support of a loving presence that carries you when you cannot walk, lifts you when you are too weak to stand, and holds you safely above the dangers that would otherwise bring you down. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had reached a point in her illness where she felt she could not take another step, where her strength was completely gone, where she was ready to give up the fight for healing because she simply had nothing left to fight with. He reminded her of this promise that angels would bear her up in their hands, that she did not have to walk this path in her own strength, that divine support was available to carry her when human strength had failed. She began to visualize herself being carried in the hands of angels, lifted above her circumstances, supported by divine power that never grew tired, and as she practiced this visualization, strength began to return, hope began to revive, and she found herself able to continue the healing journey she had been ready to abandon. The stones in your path are those hard, painful obstacles that threaten to trip you up and bring you crashing down. The setbacks in your treatment, the discouraging test results, the negative words spoken by those who do not understand faith, the moments when healing seems to be reversing rather than progressing. But the angels bear you up above these stones. They lift you over these obstacles. They carry you past these dangers so that your foot is not dashed, your faith is not destroyed, your healing is not derailed by the difficulties along the way. You affirm today with complete confidence, God's angels bear me up in their hands. I am carried over every obstacle. I am lifted above every stone that would trip me. I am supported by divine power that never fails, and as you make this affirmation your own, you experience the reality of angelic support carrying you forward toward the complete healing that awaits you. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet, and this powerful promise declares that you are not merely protected from the dangers that threaten your health, but that you are given authority over them, power to overcome them, strength to trample them beneath your feet as a victorious conqueror rather than a helpless victim. The lion represents those fierce, aggressive diseases that attack openly and violently, those conditions that seem to roar against you with terrifying symptoms, those illnesses that announce their presence with pain and suffering that cannot be ignored. The adder represents those subtle, sneaky diseases that attack without warning, those conditions that poison your system silently before you even know they are present, those illnesses that work in hidden ways to undermine your health before you realize anything is wrong. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he faced both types of attack, a chronic condition that roared against him daily with obvious symptoms, and an underlying issue that had been silently damaging his body for years before being discovered, and he felt overwhelmed by enemies attacking from every direction. Dr. Joseph Murphy taught him that Psalm 91 promised not just protection from these enemies, but victory over them, authority to tread upon the lion and the adder, power to trample even the young lion and the dragon beneath his feet. He began to see himself not as a victim of disease, but as a conqueror with divine authority, not as someone being attacked, but as someone with the power to overcome every attack. And this shift in his mental image produced a corresponding shift in his physical condition. The young lion represents disease in its early stages, and the dragon represents disease in its most frightening and seemingly unconquerable form. Yet both are placed beneath your feet by the authority given to you through your dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. You are not begging God to protect you from these enemies. You are exercising the authority already given to you as one who dwells in divine consciousness. And with that authority you declare, I tread upon every disease that threatens me. I trample every sickness beneath my feet. I have authority over the lion and the adder, over the young lion and the dragon, and no enemy of my health can stand against the power that works through me. Because he hath set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. And now the voice of God speaks directly in Psalm 91, explaining why you receive such extraordinary protection, such complete healing, such total deliverance from every form of disease and danger that threatens your well-being. The reason is simply this: you have set your love upon God. You have turned your heart toward the divine presence within you. You have made the infinite healing presence the object of your affection, your trust, your devotion, and because of this love, deliverance comes to you as surely as the sun rises each morning. Love is not merely an emotion you feel occasionally, but a direction you set your heart toward consistently, a choice you make daily to focus on the divine rather than the disease, to dwell on healing rather than sickness, to trust in God rather than surrender to fear. A woman shared with Dr. Freed, Joseph Murphy, that she had always believed in God intellectually, had always attended religious services, had always said the right words, but had never truly set her love upon God with her whole heart, until facing a serious illness that stripped away everything she had trusted in before. In that moment of crisis, she turned her heart completely toward the divine presence within her, set her love upon God with an intensity she had never experienced before, and discovered that this wholehearted love activated a healing power she had never accessed through mere intellectual belief. Therefore will I deliver him, God declares, And this deliverance is not uncertain, not conditional upon factors you cannot control, not dependent upon your perfection or worthiness, but is the certain response of infinite love to the love you have directed toward it. When you set your love upon God, you create a circuit of giving and receiving. You establish a flow of divine energy that moves from infinite source through your consciousness and back again. And in this flow of love, healing power is released that delivers you from every form of bondage. You set your love upon God today by turning your attention to the divine presence within, by choosing to trust this presence rather than fear your condition, by declaring with your whole heart, "I love you, God. I set my affection upon you. I trust you completely for my healing and deliverance." And this love activates the promise, "Therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high because he hath known my name." And this promise reveals that those who truly know God not merely know about God, but know God in intimate, personal experience, are elevated above the circumstances that would otherwise overwhelm them, raised above the diseases that would otherwise destroy them, set on high where the floods of sickness cannot reach and the attacks of disease cannot touch. To know the name of God is to know the nature of God, the character of God, the healing power of God. And this knowledge is not intellectual information stored in your memory, but living experience embedded in your consciousness. When you truly know that God is love, you cannot be overwhelmed by fear. When you truly know that God is life, you cannot be conquered by death. When you truly know that God is perfect health, you cannot be permanently defeated by disease. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had studied religion his entire life, had read countless books about God, had accumulated vast knowledge about spiritual matters, yet still found himself defeated by illness and overcome by fear when facing a serious diagnosis. Joseph Murphy explained that knowing about God was different from knowing God, that information in the head was different from experience in the heart, that true knowledge of God's name came not from books but from communion, not from study but from relationship, not from theology but from the direct experience of divine presence in the secret place within. This man began to spend time each day not reading about God but experiencing God, not thinking about divine love but feeling divine love, not analyzing healing power but opening himself to healing power. And as he came to truly know the name of God through direct experience, he was set on high above his circumstances, raised above his diagnosis, elevated to a place where disease could not reach him. You are being set on high today as you come to know God's name more deeply, as you move from intellectual belief to experiential knowledge, as you discover through direct communion the healing nature of the God who dwells within your secret place. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. And this promise addresses the deepest fear of those who are sick, the fear of calling out to God and receiving no answer, the fear of praying for healing and hearing only silence, the fear of being alone in trouble with no divine presence to comfort and no healing power to restore. God promises that when you call, you will be answered, not might be answered, not could be answered if conditions are right. Not will eventually be answered when God has time, but will be answered as certainly as the echo returns when you call into a canyon, as surely as the light appears when you flip the switch, as naturally as the harvest comes when you plant the seed. A woman confided to Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had been calling upon God for months with no apparent answer, that her prayers seemed to hit the ceiling and fall back upon her, that she felt completely abandoned in her time of greatest need, and she came to him in despair, wondering if God even heard her cries. He explained to her that God was answering, that healing power was responding, that divine presence was with her in trouble, but that she had been so focused on looking for the answer in a particular form that she had missed the many ways God was already responding to her call. She had expected instantaneous physical healing and had overlooked the peace that came during prayer, the guidance that came through a friend's suggestion, the strength that came each morning to face another day. The gradual improvements that were happening so slowly she did not notice them. God promises not only to answer when you call, but to be with you in trouble, and this presence is itself an answer. This companionship is itself a gift. This assurance that you are not alone is itself a healing balm that begins to restore your soul even before your body is fully healed. You call upon God today with complete confidence that you will be answered, that you are not calling into emptiness, that the presence you seek is already with you in trouble, already working to deliver you, already moving to honor you with complete healing and total restoration. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. And this final promise of Psalm 91 speaks directly to your desire not merely to be healed for a moment, but to live a long and satisfying life. Not merely to recover from this present illness, but to enjoy years of health and vitality and purpose that stretch out before you like a beautiful road leading to destinations you have not yet imagined. Long life is not merely many years added to your existence, but years filled with meaning, years rich with experience, years abundant with the goodness that God intends for all who dwell in the secret place of the Most High and make the Lord their habitation. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been given a prognosis of only months to live, that doctors had calculated the end of his life based on statistics and averages and the experiences of others who had faced similar conditions, and he came asking whether he should accept this verdict or whether the promise of long life could apply even to him. Dr. Joseph Murphy assured him that no doctor, no matter how skilled, had the authority to determine the length of his life, that no statistic, no matter how carefully calculated, could predict what would happen when a person truly dwelt in the consciousness of divine life and accepted the promise of long life with unwavering faith. This man refused to accept the prognosis as his destiny, refused to count down the months he had been given, refused to make preparations for an ending that he did not believe was truly his, and instead affirmed daily, "With long life God satisfies me. I live in the fullness of divine life. My years are blessed and multiplied by the power of the Almighty." Years passed beyond what the doctors had predicted, years of quality and meaning and purpose that he would have missed had he accepted the limited verdict pronounced over his life. You claim this promise today not as a distant hope, but as a present reality being fulfilled, declaring with confidence, "God satisfies me with long life. My years are extended by divine power. I live to see my purposes fulfilled and my destiny completed." And as you claim this promise, your subconscious mind accepts it as truth and works to manifest it in your body as health, vitality, and the length of days that fully satisfies. "And show him my salvation," God promises, and this salvation is not only the rescue of your soul for some future existence, but the deliverance of your entire being, body, mind, and spirit in this present life, the visible evidence of divine intervention that others can see and marvel at as they witness what God has done for you. Salvation means wholeness, completeness, nothing missing and nothing broken, and when God shows you his salvation, you experience this wholeness in every area of your life. Your body made whole from disease, your mind made whole from fear, your relationships made whole from conflict, your circumstances made whole from lack. A woman shared with Dr. Joseph Murphy that she longed not only to be healed privately, but to experience a healing so dramatic, so undeniable, so clearly the work of God that it would become a testimony others could see and believe, that her salvation would be shown not just to her, but through her to everyone who knew her story. He told her that this desire was not selfish ambition, but holy longing, that God delighted to show his salvation in ways that could not be explained by natural means, that the promise of Psalm 91 included not just secret, private healing, but visible, demonstrated salvation that glorified the God who dwells in the secret place. She continued to dwell in the consciousness of divine presence, continued to affirm the promises of healing and protection, continued to trust in the God she had made her refuge and fortress, and when healing came, it came in such a way that her doctors acknowledged they had witnessed something beyond their medical understanding. Her family saw clearly the hand of God in her restoration, and she became a living demonstration of the salvation promised to all who dwell in the secret place of the Most High. You are not only being healed privately, but being prepared for a public demonstration of God's salvation, a testimony that will encourage others, a visible proof that the promises of Psalm 91 are true and available to all who will believe them and apply them. The secret place of the Most High is not a location you travel to, but a consciousness you enter into, not a physical destination, but a mental and spiritual state where you become aware of the divine presence that is always with you, always within you, always available to heal, protect, and deliver you from every form of disease and danger. You enter this secret place through the doorway of your own thought, through the decision to turn your attention away from the disease and toward the healer, away from the symptoms and toward the source of health, away from the prognosis of man and toward the promise of God. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had tried many times to enter the secret place but could not seem to find the entrance, that he had searched for this place of divine protection but it remained hidden from him, that he knew the promise was real but could not discover how to access it for himself. Dr. Joseph Murphy explained that the secret place was not hidden because God wished to keep it from him, but because he was looking outside when he should have been looking within. That the entrance to the secret place was not through religious rituals or special locations, but through the simple turning of his own consciousness toward the God who already dwelt at the center of his being. This man stopped searching outside and began turning within, stopped looking for God in distant places, and began recognizing God in the depths of his own soul, stopped trying to find the secret place and began realizing he was already standing at its entrance and needed only to step inside through the doorway of faith. You enter the secret place right now by closing your eyes if you wish, by turning your attention inward, by acknowledging the divine presence that dwells at the very center of your being, by saying with conviction, I am in the secret place of the Most High. I dwell in the consciousness of God's presence. I am here where healing flows, where protection surrounds me, where deliverance is accomplished. And as you recognize that you are already here, the benefits of dwelling in this place begin to manifest in your body as healing, in your mind as peace, in your life as complete deliverance. The shadow of the Almighty is not a place of darkness, but a place of perfect protection, where the burning heat of disease cannot scorch you, where the harmful rays of fear cannot damage you, where the destructive light of negative prognosis cannot blind you to the truth of your healing. When you stand in the shadow of the Almighty, you stand so close to God that you are covered completely, hidden in divine presence, sheltered by infinite love from every attack that would harm your body, your mind, or your spirit. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she felt exposed and vulnerable to her disease, as though she were standing naked in a hostile environment, with nothing to protect her from the elements that were destroying her health. And she asked how she could find the covering that would shield her from further harm. He instructed her to move closer to God in consciousness, not by traveling anywhere physically, but by turning her thoughts more completely toward the divine presence, by spending more time in meditation and prayer, by making her moments of communion with God longer and deeper and more frequent throughout each day. As she moved closer to God in consciousness, she found herself moving into the shadow of the Almighty, into that place of perfect protection where the disease that had been attacking her could no longer reach, where the fear that had been tormenting her could no longer penetrate, where the negative words that had been spoken over her could no longer influence her expectation. You abide under the shadow of the Almighty by remaining in close conscious contact with God throughout your day, by returning again and again to the awareness of divine presence, by refusing to wander far from the secret place where this shadow falls. And as you abide in this shadow, You discover that what once burned you cannot touch you, what once harmed you cannot reach you, what once threatened your health cannot penetrate the covering of divine protection that surrounds you completely. Your refuge and your fortress are not built by human hands, but by divine consciousness, not constructed from physical materials, but from spiritual truth, not maintained by human effort, but by the continuous recognition of God as your protection and your strength. When you say of the Lord, "He is my refuge and my fortress," you are not merely reciting words, but constructing walls of protection around your consciousness, building a stronghold of faith that no disease can penetrate, establishing a place of safety where you can retreat when the attacks of sickness seem overwhelming. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had tried to build his own fortress of protection through medical knowledge, through understanding his condition, through researching every treatment option, through controlling every variable that might affect his health. And yet the disease had penetrated every defense he had constructed with such effort and care. Dr. Joseph Murphy explained that human-built fortresses could never provide the protection he needed, that no amount of knowledge or effort or control could build walls strong enough to keep out every threat, that only the fortress of divine consciousness could provide the absolute protection promised in Psalm 91. This man stopped trying to build his own fortress and began to dwell in the fortress that God had already built, stopped relying on human defenses and began trusting in divine protection, stopped speaking of his disease as stronger than his efforts, and began declaring, "The Lord is my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust." His fortress was not built by accumulating more knowledge, but by declaring the truth of God's protection. His refuge was not found by controlling every circumstance, but by surrendering every circumstance to the God who controlled all things. You build your refuge and fortress today, not by human effort, but by divine declaration, not by accumulating resources, but by acknowledging the God who is your only true resource. And as you say of the Lord, "He is my refuge and my fortress," the walls of protection rise around you, and no disease can break through. The snare of the fowler is any trap that the enemy of your health has set to catch you unaware, any deception that leads you to believe healing is impossible, any lie that convinces you that your condition is permanent, any scheme that steals your faith before you can use it to claim your divine healing. The fowler is patient and cunning, setting traps along the paths you walk, waiting for moments of weakness when your faith wavers, waiting for times of discouragement when your hope fades, waiting for seasons of exhaustion when your declarations lose their conviction. But God promises to deliver you from every snare, to expose every trap before you step into it, to give you wisdom to recognize the lies that would steal your healing and the schemes that would undermine your faith. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had fallen into snare after snare on her healing journey, first believing the snare that said God did not heal today, then escaping that trap only to fall into the snare that said she was not worthy of healing, then escaping that trap only to fall into the snare that said her condition was different, too severe, too advanced for even God to heal. Each snare had delayed her healing. Each trap had stolen precious time that could have been spent in confident faith, and she wondered how she could avoid the snares that still lay ahead on her path. Dr. Joseph Murphy taught her that the Word of God was her protection against every snare, that the promises of Psalm 91 exposed every trap before she could step into it, that daily meditation on divine truth gave her eyes to see the lies of the fowler before they could deceive her. She began each day by reading and declaring the promises of Psalm 91, filling her mind with truth that left no room for the lies that had trapped her before. And as she walked through her days with consciousness saturated in divine promise, she found herself stepping over snares she would previously have fallen into, recognizing traps that would previously have caught her, delivered from the fowler's schemes by the truth that had become her constant companion. You are delivered today from every snare set for your faith, every trap laid for your hope, every scheme designed to steal your healing, as you fill your mind with the promises of God and walk in the light of divine truth. The noisome pestilence represents not only physical disease, but the plague of negative thinking that spreads through your mind, infecting every thought with fear, contaminating every expectation with doubt, poisoning every hope with the toxins of unbelief that are more deadly to your healing than any virus or bacteria that could attack your body. This mental pestilence is contagious, spreading from person to person through negative words, fearful predictions, hopeless prognosis, and the constant repetition of disease-focused thinking that fills the atmosphere of a world that does not understand the power of the mind to create health or sickness. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had been careful to protect his body from infection, taking every precaution, following every guideline, yet he had failed to protect his mind from the pestilence of fear that had infected him through news reports, conversations with worried friends, and the constant bombardment of negative information that had poisoned his consciousness even more thoroughly than any physical disease. Dr. Joseph Murphy explained that the noisome pestilence of the mind was far more dangerous than any physical infection, that fear weakened the immune system while faith strengthened it, that negative expectation created the very conditions it feared, while positive expectation created the healing it anticipated. This man began to quarantine his mind from the pestilence of fear as carefully as he had tried to protect his body from physical infection, turning off news that spread panic, avoiding conversations that reinforced disease, refusing to research every frightening possibility, and instead filling his consciousness with the promises of Psalm 91 that declared God would deliver him from the noisome pestilence of both body and mind. You are delivered today from the pestilence that attacks your thoughts as well as the pestilence that threatens your body, as you guard the entrance to your mind as carefully as you guard the entrance to your home, allowing only thoughts of faith, hope, and healing to enter and dwell in the sacred space of your consciousness where health is created and maintained. The feathers of God that cover you are soft and gentle, speaking of the tender care with which the Almighty protects you, the nurturing love that surrounds you even in your weakest moments, the comforting presence that holds you close when disease has left you feeling alone and afraid. These are not the hard scales of armor that protect through rigid strength, but the soft feathers of a mother bird that protect through intimate covering, through the warmth of love, through the gentle embrace of a presence that knows your weakness and loves you not in spite of it, but in the midst of it. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had always imagined God's protection as hard and demanding, as something she had to earn through perfect faith and flawless performance, as a covering that would be withdrawn if she showed weakness or doubt or fear. He showed her this image of God covering her with feathers, of divine protection coming not through harsh demands, but through tender love, of the Almighty caring for her as a mother bird cares for her young. And this new image transformed her entire relationship with God, and with her own healing process, she stopped trying to be strong enough to deserve protection and began allowing herself to be weak enough to receive it. Stopped striving to earn God's covering and began resting in the love that covered her freely. Stopped demanding perfection of herself and began accepting the tender care that was offered to her imperfection. Under the wings of God, she found safety not because she was strong, but because God was strong. Protection not because she was worthy, but because God was loving, healing, not because she had performed correctly, but because she had surrendered completely to the feathered embrace of divine compassion. You are covered today with the feathers of God, surrounded by tender protection, held close by nurturing love. And this covering is not something you must earn, but something you simply receive by acknowledging your need and accepting the care that is freely offered to all who come to the secret place seeking shelter. The truth of God is your shield and buckler, and this truth is not abstract theological doctrine, but living, active reality that protects you moment by moment from the attacks that would destroy your health and steal your healing. A shield is held before you to stop attacks before they reach your body, and the truth of God's healing presence is the shield you hold before you to stop the attacks of disease before they can advance further, to stop the arrows of fear before they can pierce your heart, to stop the negative words of others before they can penetrate your consciousness and undermine your faith. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he felt constantly under attack, that every day brought new symptoms, new fears, new discouraging words from well-meaning people who could not understand his faith, and he wondered how he could continue to defend himself against this relentless assault. Dr. Joseph Murphy taught him to take up the shield of truth each morning before he faced the day, to arm himself with the declarations of Psalm 91 before he encountered the attacks that would come, to hold before him the truth that God was his refuge, his fortress, his deliverer, his healer, so that every attack would strike this shield of truth rather than penetrating to wound his faith. This man began each morning by speaking the truth of God aloud, declaring the promises of protection and healing, raising the shield of Psalm 91 before him as he walked into the battles of the day, and he found that attacks that had previously wounded him now fell harmlessly against the shield of truth he carried. The buckler is a smaller shield worn on the arm for close combat, and the truth of God is also your buckler for those intimate hand-to-hand battles with symptoms and pain and discouragement that you face throughout each day, protecting you not only from the large attacks but from the small, constant struggles that would wear you down if you faced them unprotected. You take up your shield and buckler today by declaring the truth of God before you face any battle, and this truth protects you from every attack. You shall not be afraid, the psalmist declares, and this is not merely a prediction of how you will feel, but a command that releases you from the obligation to fear, a divine permission to lay down the burden of worry that you have been carrying, an authoritative statement that fear is no longer required of you, because you dwell in the secret place where fear has no power and no place. Fear has been your companion for so long that you may have forgotten what life feels like without it. Fear has whispered in your ear so constantly that you may have come to believe its voice is your own. Fear has gripped your heart so tightly that you may have assumed its presence was permanent and its power was supreme. But the promise of Psalm 91 breaks the power of fear over your life, declaring that you shall not be afraid, that fear is not your destiny, that the terror by night and the arrow by day no longer have authority over your emotions or your expectations. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that fear had become so much a part of her experience that she could not imagine facing her illness without it, that worry seemed like the responsible response to her diagnosis, that anxiety felt like evidence that she was taking her condition seriously. He explained to her that fear was not helping her but harming her, that worry was not evidence of responsibility but a destroyer of the faith that would heal her. That anxiety was not taking her condition seriously, but giving power to the disease while taking power from the divine presence that could heal her. She began to practice laying down fear whenever it arose, not fighting it but simply releasing it, not arguing with it but simply choosing faith instead. And as she practiced this release, she discovered that she could face her condition with peace rather than terror, with confidence rather than anxiety, with the calm assurance of one who dwells in the secret place where fear cannot enter. You are released today from the obligation to fear, set free from the burden of worry, liberated from the grip of anxiety, as you accept the command and the promise that you shall not be afraid. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. And this promise is not a guarantee that you will never witness suffering around you, not a shield that blinds you to the pain of others, but an assurance that the conditions affecting those who do not dwell in the secret place need not become your conditions, that the diseases claiming those who do not know their refuge need not claim you. You may work in environments where sickness spreads. You may live in communities where disease is common. You may have family histories that seem to predetermine your health outcomes. Yet none of these circumstances have the power to override the protection promised to those who dwell in the consciousness of divine presence. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that his entire family had been struck by a hereditary condition, that his father had it, his grandfather had it, his brothers and sisters were developing it. And medical wisdom said it was only a matter of time before he manifested the same symptoms that had appeared in every generation before him. Dr. Joseph Murphy explained that while 1,000 might fall at his side with this condition, while 10,000 of his relatives might manifest these symptoms, he was not bound by genetics or family history when he dwelt in the secret place of the Most High, where a different law operated, a higher principle governed, and divine protection superseded biological inheritance. This man refused to accept family history as his personal destiny, refused to wait passively for symptoms that everyone expected him to develop, refused to identify with the disease that had marked every generation before him, and instead identified with the God who was his refuge, his fortress, his deliverer from every condition that had bound his ancestors. Years passed and the condition never manifested in his body, the symptoms never appeared, the family curse was broken in his experience because he had discovered a place of dwelling where heredity had no authority and family patterns had no power. You are not bound today by what has happened to others, not destined to repeat the health experiences of your family, not subject to statistics that predict your future based on the past of those around you. For you dwell in a place where a different law operates and a higher power protects. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked, and this beholding is not meant to produce judgment or condemnation in your heart, but wisdom and understanding in your mind, as you observe what happens when people refuse to dwell in the secret place, refuse to make the Lord their refuge, refuse to trust in the healing power that is available to all who will accept it. You see with your eyes what happens when fear is allowed to reign unchallenged, when negative thinking is permitted to poison the consciousness, when the promises of God are ignored in favor of the predictions of man, and this seeing becomes your teacher, instructing you by contrast, showing you the path not to take by revealing where that path leads. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she was surrounded by people who had chosen the path of fear and negativity, who had refused every suggestion of faith and hope, who had embraced their diseases as permanent identities rather than temporary conditions to be overcome. And watching them decline had filled her with sorrow and with a determination not to follow the same path. She observed with her eyes but did not absorb into her consciousness. She saw the reward of living without faith, but did not accept that reward for herself. She learned from the choices of others without repeating those choices in her own life. This observation became motivation for her continued dwelling in the secret place, fuel for her daily declarations of faith, evidence that the path she had chosen was the right path, even when walking it required effort and persistence. You are not meant to judge those whose choices lead to suffering, not meant to condemn those who have not discovered what you are discovering, but you are meant to observe, to learn, to allow what you see to strengthen your resolve to continue dwelling in the consciousness of divine protection where a different outcome awaits you. What you behold with your eyes becomes instruction for your mind and motivation for your faith, as you choose daily to dwell in the secret place rather than follow the paths that lead away from healing and life. Because thou hast made the Lord thy habitation, no evil shall befall thee. And this because reveals the direct relationship between your conscious choice and your protected condition, between your decision to dwell in divine consciousness, between the habitation you have chosen and the health you receive. Your habitation is the state of consciousness where you live most consistently, the mental and spiritual environment where you spend most of your time, the thoughts and beliefs and expectations that form the home of your inner life. And when this habitation is filled with awareness of God, recognition of divine presence, trust in infinite healing power, then no evil can find a place to land. No condition can become permanent in the dwelling place where God is acknowledged as the only true occupant. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy that he had tried to make God his habitation, but kept finding himself evicted by fear, displaced by worry, pushed out of the secret place by the constant pressures of dealing with his illness. And he wondered how he could establish permanent residence in divine consciousness when circumstances kept forcing him to leave. Dr. Joseph Murphy explained that making the Lord your habitation was not a one-time decision, but a continuous practice. Not a single choice, but 1,000 daily choices to return again and again to the awareness of divine presence, to re-enter the secret place every time you realize you have wandered, to re-establish your dwelling in God every time circumstances have temporarily pushed you out. This man stopped expecting perfection of himself and started practicing persistence instead, stopped condemning himself when fear displaced him, and started simply returning to his true habitation as soon as he noticed he had left. And through this practice of continuous returning, he gradually found himself spending more time in the secret place and less time in the dwelling of fear, until the divine habitation became his natural home, and fear became the temporary visitor that could never stay long. You make the Lord your habitation today, not by achieving perfect faith, but by choosing again and again to return to divine consciousness whenever you notice you have strayed. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. And these angelic helpers are working on your behalf right now, guiding you toward healing, protecting you from harm, directing your steps toward the treatments, the practitioners, the insights, and the breakthroughs that will restore your health completely. You cannot see these angels with your physical eyes, but you can recognize their work in the coincidences that are not coincidences, the meetings that seem random but prove providential, the information that comes to you at exactly the right moment, the doors that open when you thought all doors were closed, the help that arrives when you thought you were completely alone. A woman told Dr. Joseph Murphy that she had prayed for guidance about her treatment options, and then within days had 3 separate conversations with people she had not sought out, who all mentioned the same doctor, the same approach, the same path forward, and she wondered if this was merely coincidence or something more. He assured her that this was the work of angels, given charge over her, coordinating circumstances and conversations and connections to guide her in all her ways, and that recognizing this angelic activity would open her to receive even more divine guidance as she continued her healing journey. She began to pay attention to the subtle guidance that came throughout each day, the thoughts that arose during prayer, the suggestions that came through others, the inner knowing that directed her steps even when she could not explain why she knew what she knew, and as she paid attention to this angelic guidance, she found herself moving surely and steadily toward complete healing. Protected from wrong turns, kept from harmful choices, directed in all her ways by heavenly helpers assigned specifically to her. You have angels given charge over you today, keeping you in all your ways, guiding your healing journey, and as you become aware of their presence and attentive to their guidance, you find yourself walking surely toward the complete restoration that is your divine destiny. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation, and these final words of Psalm 91 are spoken over you today by the God who dwells in your secret place, the Almighty under whose shadow you abide. The Lord, who is your refuge and fortress, and in whom you have placed your complete trust. This is not a conditional promise dependent upon your perfection, not a reward reserved only for those who never doubt or fear or struggle, but a declaration of divine intention toward all who set their love upon God and call upon the name of the Most High in their time of need. Long life is being prepared for you, years of health and purpose and joy that stretch beyond what you can presently imagine, years in which you will see the salvation of God not as a distant hope, but as a living reality manifest in your healed body, your peaceful mind, your restored relationships, your abundant circumstances. A man told Dr. Joseph Murphy near the end of his healing journey that he had begun by simply hoping to survive, hoping to gain a few more months or years, hoping to delay the ending that seemed inevitable, but through dwelling in Psalm 91, through making God his habitation, through trusting in the promises of protection and healing, he had discovered something far beyond survival. He had discovered life, abundant life, life so full of meaning and purpose and joy that he no longer counted his days in fear but embraced them in gratitude, no longer waited for death but lived fully in the present, no longer hoped merely to exist but expected to thrive for years to come. God showed him salvation not as a future event after death, but as a present experience of wholeness, healing, and abundant life that transformed every day into a gift and every year into an opportunity to fulfill the purposes for which he had been created. You receive this promise today. With long life, God satisfies you, God shows you his salvation, and this satisfaction and salvation begin right now as you close this time of meditation and carry with you the consciousness of one who dwells in the secret place of the Most High and trusts completely in the God who is your refuge, your fortress, your healer, and your life forevermore.